if you see yourself, achieving what small step, that will give you the confidence to go to the next step. So confidence and boldness are very different, I think. Confidence comes from action. People gain more confidence when they actually act. The more confidence you have, it gives you that confidence to be a little bit more bold. Like, I feel like everything kind of has its step. And reverse engineering a process is really helpful to getting what you want.
My guest, Jennifer Cohen, is best-selling author, brand strategist, international speaker, and educator with a specific focus on building healthy habits to drive positive behavioral change. She was recently named 100 most influential people in health and fitness by Greatist and is currently ranked number 16 most impactful fitness entrepreneurs by WebMD. In 2019, Jennifer took her passion and experience to develop and host one of the fastest rising, regularly ranked podcasts, Habits and Hustle, featured on entrepreneur.com. Jennifer's work goes beyond performance training. She also serves as a brand strategist to help world-class brands, including Weight Watchers, Muscle Milk, Kind Bar, and so much more. She took her wealth of knowledge center stage when she was invited to deliver her signature 10% target as a TED Talk, which garnished over 3 million views in only a short few months. Jennifer is also best-selling author of 3 books, No Gym Required, Release Your Inner Rock Star, Strong is the New Skinny, and Badass Body Goals. She is also the CEO of Suprema Fitness, a full-service agency which primarily invests in health and wellness tech startups. With all her achievements, the one closest to her heart is being the co-founder of the Good Human Foundation, which supports health and well-being for all women. All right, Jennifer. Okay, so we've been talking for some time, but now we're going to really get into the nit and gritty, why I brought you on. Would you prefer me to call you Jen or Jennifer, by the way?
Oh, I don't care. Whatever's easier for you. Totally fine. I'm good either.
Well, Jen, welcome to the show. I'm so appreciative to have you on. Thank you again.
Oh, I'm so happy to be here. It was great talking to you beforehand.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, okay. So I know you are a woman that just went for it, and you're a woman that keeps going for it. And actually, ironically, I thought of you before this interview because there's one thing you share that you need to ask for what you want. And I think that's a really big thing to pull out. And so what I did actually before we got into this interview, I was thinking of, I'm coming up on my 100th episode on my podcast. And I'm like, okay, I want something big. I want it to be powerful. And I had Dr. Ona Brown on my podcast, which is Les Brown's daughter. She is so powerful, so inspiring in so many ways, but I love Les Brown. Love. He is so powerful. He's one of my most favorite speakers. And so I've been wanting him. That's of course my big, reach.
Right.
I'm shooting for. And so I just thought of you. I'm like, you know what? I just got to ask. So I don't usually like asking people that I know that I've recorded with, for a referral or whatnot. But I'm like, I'm just going to do it. I'm just going to ask Dr. Ona Brown.
Good for you.
So I just thought of you.
And you asked, and did you get it?
Oh, I just emailed before you.
Before you literally just did it.
Yeah. And it just reminds me of you because that's one of the big things you talk about is that we have to ask for what we want. So let's just jump right in. So that
I love that you did that though. Absolutely. You were kind of like channeling your inner Jennifer, basically.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So, let's first start off with you, kind of how you got into this journey of being this fitness influencer, this really powerful woman in the health and wellness space. What led you into this?
You know what? Honestly, it was very, very, it was kind of like a fluke, to be honest. It was not something that I was planning to do. I went to college, university, we call that in Canada. We call college university, for business. I love business. And, I actually started off working in a record, first at a sports team, and then I went to a record label. And I was kind of like a director of marketing for BMG Music. And, you know, that was kind of my path. And then I got a job actually to come to LA through another, that's how I ended up in Los Angeles, was through a job offer. And I had a great office. It was in Santa Monica. It was like prime location, beautiful office overlooking the ocean, and just great. And I just didn't really want to, but at the same time, I was kind of like not really inspired by what I was doing anymore, because my personality is such as I don't love working in offices, even though office could be beautiful. It wasn't really my thing. I kind of always wanted to be my own boss. I'm kind of like a caged animal that way. I don't like when other people tell me what I should do. I like to kind of create my own. So I actually quit that job. And because I was there as kind of an employee of them, I was on a working visa. So you can't just kind of work willy-nilly anywhere. You have to be, I wasn't legal to work anywhere else. So then kind of as like a side hustle, I thought, you know what I'm going to do is I'm going to become a personal trainer, get my first certification, and just like train people on the side to make money until I figure out my next move, kind of thing. So it was kind of supposed to be like an in-between thing. Because I've always had a huge passion for fitness and for health and for working out. I always loved it. It was just kind of something I liked to do before it was like a fad. And when I did it, and I was going through the whole process of doing it, I noticed, like, you know what, I know how marketing money works in these record labels. I know how budgets are. And I kind of thought and created an opportunity for myself where then I went to the record labels that I had the relationships with, where I worked for or dealt with in other business dealings. And I created an opportunity where I was like, you know what, instead of being a personal trainer where I'd make X amount of dollars training, A, B, or C, I kind of created an opportunity where I went to the head of the record label and I said, listen, I want to be a label trainer where I want to be paid a retainer. No matter how many people I train, I want to be paid X amount of dollars. Because I know because they have the money allotted for certain things when people go on tours or when they get ready for a music video at the time. And I kind of pitched this like new idea. And the guy took a chance on me, and that's how I started my actual business. So I kind of merged the two things that I love. I merged, having my own business. I also merged the fitness portion into like a business, taking my passion and my passion and my knowledge, I guess. And that's how I kind of started. And what I wanted to do was I didn't ever want to have a cap ceiling. So what that did was for me, it gave me the ability. So if people show up or not, I'm still making money. You know what I mean? Because in the personal training space, a lot of times, people are constantly like changing their appointments and like canceling. And then like the trainer is left kind of like sometimes holding the bag, so to speak. Mm-hmm. So that was kind of how I kind of structured it for myself. And one label turned into 2, 3, 4. And that was how my business became that's how I became a person like that, how I worked in the fitness business. And it kind of just like mushroomed from there.
Yeah. Well, that kind of touches into what I was first speaking about is you just went for it, asked what you wanted, which is so incredible that like you said, you just didn't want to have this limitation of how much you could make. So you thought outside the box. So talking Absolutely. About asking for what you want instead of getting what you settle for.
Oh, yeah. So, chase what you want. Don't take what you can get. Yes.
Yeah. I love that statement alone.
Thank you.
It's so good. So this whole, I know you share a TED talk about this, I'm going to share it in the show notes that everybody should listen to the specific TED talk, but you share about the story of really this big ask you had that really changed the trajectory of where you were headed. Can you share a little bit about that? You don't have to share the whole, but just a little synopsis.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So when I was really young, like 17 years old, I wanted to be a VJ for something called Much Music, which is again, like an MTV for you guys. And at the time you needed to have a demo tape. So basically I thought, why would anybody watch your demo tape, right? It has to be unique. It has to be, how could I make a demo tape that stands out where the people who are getting thousands of these, demos a day would actually watch mine? So I had this like idea of getting, should I share it here? I had this idea of having Keanu Reeves on my video, because on my demo, because he so happened to be in my hometown in Winnipeg in Canada, doing something like doing like a play, and he was like a massive star then. And I kind of just said that's what I was going to do. And I basically like said to my friends, my boyfriend at the time, my mom and dad, I'm going to go wait outside of the theater where he's performing, and I'm going to ask him to be on my demo tape. And so everyone, of course, laughed at me, and they're like, yeah, whatever. Here she goes again. I was always very much a person where I always had a lot of chutzpah. Do you know what chutzpah is? It's like a Jewish word. It's like a Jewish word for a lot of like, I always like had, like, it's kind of like having a lot of guts, like going out there and like just doing something. Yeah. That was kind of my personality anyway. So they're kind of like, yeah, whatever. But this was like really big. This was much bigger than like what I would normally have done. But, and also it was -40. Winnipeg is super cold.
Goodness.
Yeah. So I went there with my girlfriend, who like literally lasted like 3 minutes, and then she like went home, and I was just there by myself waiting in the freezing cold weather until he came out of the door, where I then like was very deliberate and walked right up to him, and I kind of like went through the crowd, and I basically said, he's asked me if I wanted an autograph, and I was like, autograph? What is that going to do for me? You know, I'm like, no, I don't want your autograph, but this is what I do want. And I asked him to help me, and he was so like, I think, taken aback and like kind of like just not understanding what I was even talking about. He said, give me your phone number and I'll call you. And so of course I thought that was like kind of like the brush off, but I did it anyway. And I went back to school the next day and told my friends and my family, and everyone was like, oh my God, Jennifer, you're such a loser. Like as if he's going to call. And, you know, one day passed, and after a few days, he actually ended up calling me. My mom answered the phone. I was living at home, and he agreed to do this tape and like this demo tape with me. And so I went to pick him up in my mom's like Cutlass Supreme at the time, and took him to my house. My mom made him lunch, and, you know, we did this huge hours and hours of interviews, and I cut it together myself and I sent it in. And like, you know, at that moment, the fact that he said yes was a very pivotal moment. And I talk about this a lot because, you know, everyone told me not to ask because it would be a waste of my time, and like as if he would ever do it. Like that whole like as if that can happen, as if you would be able to do this, as if that. But, you know, I didn't listen to their as ifs. And, you know, truthfully, I made that moment was so pivotal because I decided at that given moment that I'm never going to listen to an as if, because that as if can happen to you just as easily as anybody else. So my whole like mindset was like shifted to, you know, as if it could actually, what if this happened to me? What if I can do this? So as if shifted to what if. And that's how I approached my life ever since that day. And, you know, like I think to myself to this day, what's the worst that can happen? Someone says no, that opportunity doesn't happen. But not taking the shot is even worse, because you never know, right? You lose, you know, you don't make 100% of the shots that you don't even try for. So I never wanted to ever feel that feeling, because, you know, you never know. And that's how I've kind of approached my entire life.
Yeah. And I think that I understand why it would be such a pivotal moment, because so many people were like, oh, he's not going to call. There's no way. Like, forget it. There's no possible way. And you put yourself out there, which was really ballsy to do. Like, I don't think so many people even take that first step, right?
No, most people don't even make the first attempt. And so like my entire thing is based on these 10 attempts. I call it the 10% target, which is make 10 attempts. Because either you're going to get that goal that you want, or another opportunity will present itself that you never even knew existed by even going through the process. And the reality is most people don't even make that one attempt because they're held back by fear and self-doubt. So the idea is to get comfortable with failure, and to also, like I said, like to get comfortable with failure is part of it. But if the question becomes, how do you overcome that? Because people get very mired in their self-doubt. You know, that won't happen to me. So what ends up happening is they become complacent, or they take what's in front of them, and they do things on default. as opposed to going after that like one thing. And I want to be very clear. This is not about something as like simple as like, I want to have a new iPhone. It's not about an iPhone. This is more about like having a goal that you really want, like something that's like shifts your trajectory in a real positive way. That's much more, that's like an emotional thing or a professional thing or a personal thing that's big, that's bigger than you. It's not about a material item, and I think that a lot of times people are so scared of like that someone will like, think badly of them or like think that like, or judge them. And like, you have to kind of like get over that hurdle because, that's like, who cares, right? Like the truth is most people are so too busy, preoccupied with themselves. They're not even paying attention to you, really.
So true.
I mean, they're not even paying attention. How many times on social media, you like, this is actually something that's happening like all the time. You're on social media, you're posting all these things, your friends are, even your good friends are like seeing this stuff. They're not even paying attention. So when you see them, you're like, oh, I'm doing this and this, or I'm doing so-and-so. They're like, oh, they have no idea because they're not, when you're actually like on social media scrolling, people are just like doing things like that as a time suck a lot of times. They're not even paying attention. So like, my point is people are only paying attention to you to a very small degree. And then like, it's back to themselves. So when you get caught and stuck on what other people think of you, it's just like it's a silly and it's not like something that you should hang your hat on because it holds you back from going after your goals or like self-actualizing when to somebody that doesn't even care anyway.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And another thing is we're usually our worst enemy. We are the ones generally in our way, right? So it comes from our beliefs, our experiences, whatever. So like, for example, I feel uncomfortable asking somebody for a favor of making a connection because I don't want to overstep boundaries per se.
Yeah.
And that's what I was speaking about, the whole Les Brown, Ona Brown, because I didn't want to utilize, if you want to say, a connection to get somewhere else. I kind of want to earn it on my own.
Yeah.
But then I also needed to, step back and be like, why, what does it matter? It's not like I'm harming her by asking. It's actually like I shared with her, I deeply respect your father. And I loved our interview. So why not ask, So I think sometimes we have to step back and look at it in a full perspective of really are you doing anything wrong? Like what's the worst that could happen? Right.
What's the worst that could happen? That's why I say to myself all the time, like, what's the worst that can happen? Mm-hmm. Now, to your point, like this is a thing, it's all about, it's not what you say, it's how you say it. Right. So like, if you're asking someone, right, for something and you're saying you're not overstepping a boundary, let's say, if you're polite, if you are nice about it, if you're not being like overtly rude or aggressive, people don't mind. Like there's like, it's also like, it's kind of like understanding how to kind of like gently do the ask. Mm-hmm. And I guess part of it is also reading the people you're with. So part of this is knowing two things: having self-awareness, knowing what the situation is, and then kind of like doing some like kind of like playing within that confound a little bit, right? Because like, my point is never just to be like super aggressive and just like go right. It's about like reading the room a little bit, and then after reading the room and having some self-awareness of how that person may take it, then you can kind of like guide how you're going to go about it. But like there is a self-awareness piece. It's also how you're saying it. If you're polite, people never really care. People are never offended if you're polite. Do you know what I mean? If you're kind. See, I never understood that because a lot of times I had a lot of people asking me that on my comment, like tons of comments about that, right? Like, and it's, there are people when people ask me for things all the time, and as they should, there's people who are like, it's their approach that I'm like, oh, of course I'd help them, versus other people who ask the exact same thing, but their approach is so like such a turn off that I would be like, I wouldn't even respond. Right. So the approach is so important.
Yeah, I completely agree. And actually another interview recently, this advice was be very specific too in your ask. Like, don't like,
Deliberate.
the more, very specific, cut to the point, you could, I think another good thing to add to that is acknowledging why you seek that from them. Like acknowledging what you respect about them and acknowledging, their time is precious. I think that's another thing that I think is important. But yes, I think being specific.
I think being very specific and deliberate. I think the more specific and deliberate you are, focused is actually the right word, to what your actual goal is, the better someone can actually help you. How many times have you had a meeting with someone and, it's like they don't even know themselves what they want. So no one even knows how to help when it's so vague. But when you are more specific and the more you can laser focus on exactly what it is that you're going after, the easier it is for you to get there. And the easier it is for the person that you're asking someone for help with can help you.
Absolutely.
Eliminate more work for somebody else. It's not someone else's job to kind of like investigate and figure out Columbo you. Okay, so let me understand this. Okay, you really kind of like this and you really want to do that, and okay, I'll connect the dots for you. No, you should figure it out first. And so again, a part of this is the self-awareness, knowing what your strengths are, knowing what your weaknesses are, and play up to those strengths. Because a part of this also is realistic expectations. I'm not saying go from 0 to 60. I'm saying have some realistic expectations, then have like a strategy or like a goal in mind, like a small steps to get there. If you see yourself, achieving what small step, that will give you the confidence to go to the next step. So confidence and boldness are very different, I think. Confidence comes from action. People gain more confidence when they actually act. The more confidence you have, it gives you that confidence to be a little bit more bold. Like, I feel like everything kind of has its step. And reverse engineering a process is really helpful to getting what you want.
Yeah, I totally agree on the whole. One thing I like to recommend is like if you have this big audacious goal, is breaking into little micro chunks of tasks to achieve it. And then of course, when you accomplish a task, as you mentioned, you gain more confidence and more momentum to go after that big goal. And you also mentioned in your TED Talk that it's sometimes better to not be as smart, but to be bold. So what do you mean by this?
Totally agree. I mean, I totally said that. And that's like something I stand by. And I'm not saying that smart people can't be bold or bold people can't be smart. But a lot of times, the people who are so smart, they overthink everything. And it becomes like, analysis paralysis or paralysis analysis, where they just don't act because they're so worried about the outcome, and they think of every single particular outcome. If this happens, and that will happen, as opposed to people who are more bullish and bold and just go after something. It kind of like the action. It's the action that creates more action and momentum. It's very easy to kind of get mired into all the negative things that can happen and go down that rabbit hole, right? As opposed to just going for it with some vigor and seeing what happens. And that's why I feel like, and a lot of times, and you'll maybe even notice this yourself in life, and, is that a lot of times the people who are so smart, they haven't really quite like hit their potential a lot of times because they can't get out of their own way, right? The people I see who are the most successful, both professionally and personally, I'm not talking just in one sector, but both, are people that took took a chance on themselves, who kind of left their comfort zone, so to speak, and kind of took a risk, even if it didn't work out, they figured it out. But that kind of path, I find that's what happens a lot of times. I have friends who are just can't get out of their own way, no matter what, because they are having that analysis paralysis thing constantly.
And so they're not tapping into their full
potential.
They're
not tapping into they're not getting to the place. There's people that are, who are Harvard graduates and who are, doing well, but they're not doing what they really want to be doing, because they don't think that they think of all the negative things that could happen, as opposed to these people who I know who didn't even go to college, let alone going to Harvard. And they're they're successful beyond their wildest dreams. Again, not just financially, but everything is a ripple effect, and everything is momentum. So if you have success in one thing, it helps you get success in the next thing, and the next thing, and the next thing. That's why we always notice that people with jobs are the ones who always find jobs. You know what I mean? Because they're already working, they're already in the muck, they're already doing it. So they're already in the process. The people that are not working, who don't have a job, takes them longer to find that job, because they're not even in the mix. Right. So you need to be in the mix.
Yeah, I completely agree. And another thing I think is good for this timing is you were very creative in, figuring out a different solution, or figuring out different opportunity. The time now, with obviously still people with job loss and whatnot, they possibly have to be very creative on finding new ways of making income. What would you recommend to those people in getting more creative?
In making it,
of just starting, as you did, basically, being creative in the fitness training space. So somebody that's a fitness trainer right now, of how they could create more opportunities by just being more creative.
Well, I think that I go back to knowing what your strengths are, right? And playing to those strengths. Super important. Fitness, specifically, right? The reality is, right, everyone's doing virtual classes. I think knowing what your strengths are, and also finding a niche in a marketplace is super important. Because yes, everything is saturated anyway, but the more niche you get, sometimes you find your tribe that way, and you find your calling more, right? If you're doing fitness, come join me with a fitness class. Well, what kind of fitness class? What do you enjoy doing the most? What's your passion? What do you actually like doing? Is it Pilates? Is it yoga? Is it whatever it is? And then build around that passion, or build around that specific niche. It's much easier to gain customers, to gain a tribe, to gain a community when the more niche you are. Don't try to be everything to everybody, because then you're nobody to nothing, right? So the more specific, again, the same thing, the more specific, the more focused, the more niche you are, the easier it is to find success.
It's good advice, definitely.
Yeah.
And the other thing that I was going to ask is, as far as you were mentioning how, try 10 times, right? And we must, no matter what, we're going to experience failure in life, but that's the only way we could grow. So trying 10 times, if somebody, let's say, I don't know what's the common time that people quit, let's say 3 times. How do we get ourselves to go the 10 times? Because it's really hard to stay in it when you just keep getting a door shut. How do we stay in it? What's some advice you would say?
Well, I think that a couple things. I think it's a goal, right? I'm not going to, the reality is it's always going to be about how badly do you want something, right? When someone, I'll take it down to weight loss or fitness, right? So people always say, I just can't lose this, and I've worked with hundreds of people, thousands probably actually. And, that some of the people who say to me, I just can't lose this weight. I don't know why. I don't know what it is. I'm eating well and I'm exercising. I'm like, all right, Really? And then you actually look and break down and see what they're actually doing and eat. They're eating well. Not really. They're still having the cookies at midnight and the cake, and they're not really exercising. They're really talking on the phone and kind of like not really like working out. My point is, if you really want something bad enough, you figure out a way to get it. So the question is, what do you want? Like, do you want to lose the weight? Because if you did, there are paths to do it. You can lose the weight, but it's how badly do you want it? Is it more important to you to, eat the cookies and the processed foods at night and kind of like, make excuses why you can't exercise? Or do you really actually really want to lose it? I think a lot of times people talk a lot versus do. Yeah. And so if they actually did more than they talked, or did a little bit more doing, things actually do work for you. I mean, the reality is that is the case. I mean, people don't want to hear the hard facts, but the truth of the matter is
how badly do you want it?
But the truth is, how badly do you want it? I say all the time, like, oh, because I'm older, I'm like, oh, I want to lose 5 pounds, right? Like, I'm just saying, like, I really want to tone up. I wanted that. But then, like, last night I had a piece of cake at like 10 o'clock at night. I'm that person. I'm not. So this is not about like shaming anybody. Believe me, I'm a person like anybody else.
You're human. Yeah.
I'm human like anybody else, of course. And the reality is, what? I guess I'd rather just have the cake with my kids and like not, feel like deprived. So the truth is, like, how badly do you want it? If you really want that goal, there's always a way. Now, to your point, if you get to 3 and you want, there's 7 more attempts and you're not getting there, think about why it's not working. Is it how you're asking? Is it who you're asking? The onus would be on the person to figure out another way around the situation. Because I'm guaranteeing if they get themselves to that 10, they're either going to get that goal or they're going to get another opportunity that presented themselves 100%. Or money back guarantee.
Yeah, I think that's great. I think it is about being like asking yourself better questions, being resourceful, because maybe you haven't. Some people say, I tried everything, right, to lose weight. How many times have you heard that?
100 times.
And have
thousands,
you really?
Millions of times.
Yeah, exactly. So it's about being a little bit more resourceful and very committed to your goal.
I was going to say something, not to interrupt you. The one thing I was going to say is consistency. Consistency is so important, right? In everything. So like with the weight loss is a great example. If you want to lose 10 pounds, I'm just making a number up. This is very arbitrary, right? But okay, you can't just work out and eat well one day a week and then, screw off the rest of the time. You have to have a plan. You have to be consistent and work. You got to have a plan and work the plan. Just like anything else. If you have a certain goal in mind, you have to have a plan. Say, okay, you know what? I'm going to make these 10 attempts. So you have that mental mindset already played out. I'm going to try these things. If that didn't work out there, okay, I'm already committed because I want it that badly for 7 more attempts. Let's see what else I can do. And then the consistency. You can't just try one time and then try again in a year or 2 years and like spat it out of a 10-year period. You know what I mean? Like there has to be some kind of like rhyme or schedule behind it, right? And, the resourcefulness is so key also. A lot of people are not resourceful, but you know what? Find someone else. Like if you are trying to get to something, call somebody who is more resourceful. Use your resources that are close to you to help you achieve your goal. Use the people in your close circle to help you. Have accountability. Just in weight loss, you need an accountability partner. Is that why you're not losing the weight? Because sometimes people need that extra accountability, like a workout buddy. Have a professional buddy who you push them and they push you to be accountable, to keep on going when the going gets tough, to make that 4th attempt. Find somebody who is just as ambitious and as driven as you to kind of keep you on point. Just as you would find somebody in the fitness or the weight loss to keep you on point, to be stronger, to lose weight, whatever it is. That's a very important piece.
Yeah. And the consistency is number one. I mean, you have to be consistent to achieve anything. And you talk about habits and hustle. So habits, consistency.
Absolutely.
I mean,
Exactly.
it's everything. Yeah. I mean, it really is. I believe, and I know we talked about this a little bit, like working out for me, it's a lifestyle. It's a part of me. It's not something I do. It's who I am.
Yes.
I'm fit because that's my standard. I eat well because that's my standard, and it's become a habit for me. And so for me, I've mastered my body because it's become a part of me, right? So habits
Absolutely.
and consistency is so important. It's everything.
Habits and consistency. And I'm going to say something that's kind of interesting. Exercise also helps propel all of these things, right? Because it gives, sometimes people don't see the correlation, but there's a big correlation between success and exercise. Exercise forget about the physical, what it does to your cognitive abilities. It gives you more focus. It gives you more alertness. It gives you the more energy to pursue all those things that you want to do. Exercise and fitness has been a game changer in my life in terms of perseverance and resilience in all other areas of my life. And so it is a great habit to kind of utilize and do daily for all the extra other things that you want to get going besides the physicality part of it.
Yeah. And my morning routine is everything. It sets up my whole day. So, and that's, again, it's me forming these little habits to, trickle into my day to help me get more of what I want, so.
Absolutely.
And the other part, the hustle. So hustle, it's such a ugly word sometimes because it sounds like a drainer, right? But give us a positive look on hustle. What's hustle mean to you?
Hustle means to me, going after it, going after something, going and get something, like figuring it out, like kind of wheeling and dealing, kind of figuring it out. That's the way I look at it. It suits me in my personality, but you can call it whatever you want, goal getter, whatever it is, like the reality is for me, it's about like going after something that you want, figuring it out, being resourceful, attacking your goal, in any way, any way possible, with, of course, having, being kind of cognizant of your surroundings and having self-awareness and reading the room. Again, all of these things are like they don't necessarily have to be just innate qualities that someone just is automatically have, right? Because the reality is, like, a lot of people will maybe be listening to this and be like, I can't do that, or that's not who I am. This girl's an idiot. She's crazy. But the reality is, like, and these are all kind of habits or it's like a muscle that needs to be strengthened.
Yeah.
Like, to me, this boldness is a muscle. You're right. If you're not good at something, you have to practice it to get better. If you want to get stronger in the gym, you want to have if you want to work your biceps or your glutes, and you want to get a strong body, you have to go to the gym consistently and work out, not just once a year, but consistently on a schedule, right? If you want to get more comfortable with resilience and asking for what you want, you got to practice it. How do you practice that? You practice it by doing small little things every day. By putting yourself in those situations. Call up the phone company and see if there's any special rates or promotions, and find out if you can get some kind of break on your monthly cell phone bill. Something that's not that important. You don't know the person on the other phone anyway. And, see if that works, when you want to maybe, Wi-Fi, the same thing, for your Wi-Fi in your house. There are little things that you can figure out and that you can kind of go after that help you get comfortable being uncomfortable asking for what you want.
Yeah. And I remember that during COVID, a lot of offers were coming for credit card companies,
Yes.
Or all those things. So all those things you mentioned, you just needed to ask. It's like,
yeah.
There's been so many times that or back in the day, I remember if I wanted a credit increase, all I do is call my company, increase. Do I want my APR reduced? Call them. They'll reduce it. It's funny. You just need to ask.
You just need to ask, and people are so scared of it. I mean, that's why they have customer service, because they're, because that's how it's done. I mean, you don't get anything unless you ask. The squeaky wheel gets the oil, right?
Exactly. And stepping in the arena is so important, to just step into it. Like, just 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Exactly.
Do the Mel Robbins, because our brain's going to deter us away from anything we want, no matter what. So we just have to do 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 and jump.
I love that. I like that. It's great. Exactly. Whatever works for you, right?
Yeah. Do you beat yourself up when you don't attain? Like, I'm sure you're still striving for some big goals. So do you beat yourself up?
Oh my God, all the time. I mean, the thing is, I get no's all day. And I'm still, no matter where you are in your life, right? Like, you're still striving for anything, right? Like personal growth, professional growth. And there's always roadblocks. I mean, all the time, right? Because that's just part of life. And so I'm not saying, believe me, that like I've hit my stride and that's it. It's a constant battle. It's constant something that I work on. But I've taught myself and I've learned how to kind of like brush it off and get right back up and just try again. I don't take anything personally either, right? Like, that's another thing. Like, I kind of know it's just what happens. Like, this is part of life. So going back to the beginning of this podcast, it's like, you can't take things personally. You can't let what others think of you change your trajectory of how you're going to proceed in life, right? And like how far you're going to get. Like, you have to be the master of your own destiny and the master of your own life, and just kind of like take that ownership and go. Because like from what we said again, nobody else cares anyway that much. So people like, you should allow yourself a little bit of a like breathing moment to kind of like, okay, this happened. But then like, you should give yourself a certain amount of time, an allotted amount of time to feel whatever that is that you have to feel. And then, move forward, keep going, not get stuck and mired in the negative or the failure. Like, what was it? The truth is, like, failure is not final. Failure is just in that moment, and there's like things move, right? Like, it's just like it's like a marathon, right? So you fail, you get back up, you keep on going, you fail, it's not final. Failure is just that one thing didn't work, but that doesn't mean it's everything. And you just have to keep on pushing forward, persevering.
Yeah. Have you ever heard the speech by Denzel Washington, Fail?
I love it.
Oh, it's so good. It's so good, because even Sarah Blakely's story, like the whole idea of failure, we have to change our perception of what failure is.
Yeah.
Because it's actually, we don't realize till we get there, but it's actually a gift. It's serving us. There's always a lesson in every failure if you look for it. So it's always serving us for our highest good, right? Steering us in the right direction, like you said.
Yeah. A lot of times, if we don't know what the life's path, the path that we really have forward, our future has for us, right? But there's been so many times when or for me anyway, where in the moment when I failed something and I was like, I was so devastated. It was only later, years later, right? That like, the truth is, like, years later that I was like, oh my God, like, thank God that happened, because it's like the sliding door thing, right? You don't know what you don't know, right? Yeah. Like, have you seen the movie Sliding Doors?
Yep.
And so it's like, you don't know how one thing affects the next thing, affects the next thing, affects the next thing, and where life will take you.
So true. So I'm curious, in a time of your hustling and going after everything, if you've burnt out, which I think everybody's experienced burnout.
I'm burnt out right now.
Okay. So what are you
Not
doing?
for you, not you.
No,
Just
that's
in
okay.
life.
No, well, I know the Zoom, as we were talking about before we
Yeah.
press record, but what do you do to kind of bring you back to center? Because I get burnt out. So I'm more, asking personally for,
Yeah,
myself and others, of
absolutely.
course, because I think it's so easy in today's world. There's so much coming at us, and we want to do so much. I think we're all like wanting more out of life. So eventually it's going to burn us out. So what do we do to
You know what I do? Do you want me to tell you
rescue?
the honest truth? It's not gonna be some like fancy answer. It's gonna be like the real
Yeah.
answer. You know, my favorite thing in the world is like, I love TV. I will watch Netflix and like for like a couple hours and like binge on a show on Netflix. That really helps with my burnout because I don't want to be thinking. I don't want to be thinking. And I want to do, and I also like, I want to do things that I like to do, like I kind of shut off my phone and not talk to anybody for like a couple hours. This thing is like, it's become like kryptonite in a way, right?
Wow.
It's too much. I mean, it like with Instagram, like and like social media, all that stuff. It's like, it becomes like, it's so addictive, and it's like designed to draw you in, where it's hard to take a breath when you have that beside you as like, you know what I mean, as like an option, right? Like, like, oh, I'm bored, or I'm nothing to do, or I'm waiting on a Zoom call, I'm just going to check this. But shutting that off, watching a show, and like just kind of and just not thinking. And the other thing is, I spend time with my kids. That grounds me, right? Because that's what's really important in life, right? Is my kids. I love my kids, and like sometimes you get so caught up in all this other stuff that it takes you away from the important things in life, right? So I think kind of getting grounded into like what's really important helps with the burnout a little bit. And that's what I do, and you're going to laugh, but you'll appreciate this. I exercise. I love exercising. It makes me feel better.
No matter what, you always feel. I remember sharing a post one day. It's like this, no one ever said I didn't feel good after working out. Like, it's never been said. Or sorry, am I saying it the right way?
No one would ever say they don't feel good after. Yeah, you said it right. Like, because it's the truth. Like, so many times, like, if when I don't work out, like I feel my dopamine or serotonin, it dips, because I feel all disheveled. So I'm so used to it. It's so part of my it's part of my like part of my DNA, like what I need to do to feel on point. Absolutely. Right. So if I don't do it, I feel really kind of like off. Yeah. So I actually need to do that to kind of keep my baseline even going, and then some. So no one, but no one ever doesn't feel good afterwards. If I feel really burnt out, I will do that. I would do like some cardio. Yeah, because the cardio helps with your dopamine and your serotonin and like just all those feel good hormones.
Yeah. I think it's being very aware of, like you said, do what you love, like what really matters to you, what's a part of you makes you feel good. So yeah, that's a friendly reminder for all of us.
It is. I mean, if it's not your thing, find something that do whatever the person is that they love to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, what's new and upcoming for you there? You've written several books.
I'm writing another one. And what I have now, I launched a new company called Suprema Fitness, where it's a joint venture I have with another company called MDO Holdings. And what we're doing is we're basically creating and investing in health and wellness startups for different celebrities and athletes, and creating fitness brands around them. It's super exciting.
That's exciting.
Yeah. We just launched a week ago, actually, with Ryan Lochte, who's a swimmer who's going into the Olympics in June. He'll be the oldest Olympian, and currently he's like, the second most decorated Olympian, from Michael Phelps. Mm-hmm. And he started his own fitness platform where you can work out live twice a week with him as he's training for the Olympics. So you're doing the same routine as him.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Wow. You would love it. You should join. Yeah.
That sounds really great.
It's super fun. Out about that. Yeah. And so like, as he's like getting ready for the Olympics, people can work out in real time like this with him twice a week.
That's really neat. Okay.
Yeah,
so
check it out. Locked In Training. It's LOCHD in training.
Okay, perfect. And then what's your new book? If you could,
it's not coming out for a long time.
Okay,
I have no title yet. It's like it's a title in progress. It's crazy.
Amazing. And then of course you have your podcast, Habits and Hustle.
Habits and Hustle. Yep.
So lots of good things. So you're keeping
lots
busy.
of good things. I also, I work with a lot of different brands who I'm partners with, who I really love. I love True Niagen. Have you ever had True Niagen before?
I got my first bottle not that long ago, ran out of it. I wasn't sure if it did anything for me, but I would love to hear your feedback on that.
No, I've been taking it for 2 years. I love it. I'm so used to it. It's part of my daily routine. So I wake up, I have my water, I take my vitamin D, and I take True Niagen, and I work out and whatever else. But it's supposed to be great for your cellular health, and it's been doing really well because of now with your immunity and everything else. It's good for anti-aging. I don't know. I'm a big fan.
All that
I really
stuff.
am a big fan. Yeah, I'll send you some.
Oh, you're so sweet. Yeah, I did find out about that company, and then there was another one that's similar. I forgot. It starts with a Q or something similar that it works on the same thing. Anyways, I definitely am interested.
All right, good.
Well, that's awesome. So this has been so lovely, Jen. I deeply appreciate your time and all the wisdom, of course, you've shared. I think it's so needed right now. I think all of us really want to shoot for the stars, if you want to say. And I think we need to know that it's all possible. And we just really have to get out of our freaking own way. That's really what it comes down to. And also not listen to the naysayers and everybody else saying, oh, it's totally not possible.
Exactly.
Yeah. Exactly. So this has been so great. Thank you so much, Jen.
Thank you so much for having me.
You're so welcome.